Good evening and welcome to the evening review. My name is Juan Klare. Let's take a look at the front page. Good evening and welcome to the evening review. Joining us in studio is Bonny Handura of the previously disadvantaged Commercial Farmers Union of Namibia. Welcome to the evening review.
Welcome, thank you.
How would you rate the outcomes of government's land redistribution program?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. I think the success, in short, it's a disaster. Government have not achieved, they are not even close to the targets that they've set in terms of the land distribution program. So in short, it's a complete disaster. The implementation of that particular program was really something that left a lot to be desired for. That was clearly stipulated when you look at the first land conference and the second land conference. So it's a known issue. It's a matter of people going to the drawing board and see how best could we look at that particular situation.
Okay, and as a union, what type of policy would you sort of to sort of mirror that one or to replace that? What would you suggest government look at in addressing land redistribution?
Yes, government has two programs. The one program is the normal land reform resettlement program, and the second program is a program that was designed and was given to Agribank for implementation, which is called the Affirmative Action Loan Scheme. Both those schemes are really government schemes, and they were designed to assist black Namibians to actually have possession of, to acquire agricultural land. Now, the difference between the two is the land reform program or resettlement program. It's a Namibian who applies and with a particular criteria, and then he or she is been given access to a piece of land. The Affirmative Action Loan Scheme, it's black Namibians that have taken money out of their pockets to actually acquire these farms through the scheme that was employed that is actually implemented by the Agribank. So those are the two schemes. What we foresee to happen, I think we need to applaud our president for the merging of the Ministry of Lands and the Ministry of Agriculture, because it basically brings the strategic objective of now land is under one umbrella. So the land is not separate, agriculture is separate. So I think for the wisdom of our president, I think we need to applaud him for bringing those two ministries together. Our view in terms of that, it's two. For us, it's really about land. I think people are talking about productivity, food security, but when you look at the design of the Affirmative Action Loan Scheme was predominantly to help previously black Namibians to acquire land after independence. And that process have run, but the program was not very well. So what we are looking at doing is really a process where that program must be reviewed, which is a process that's currently underway right now. And the emphasis should be put on the interest on land, because what really makes it difficult for black farmers today is because of the interest that's on land. And I think our argument is, could we look at a much reduced interest on land through a government program, rather than the current interest rates that have been put on the particular land now. So I think that's predominantly what our focus is. It's really the interest on land that makes the whole mathematics or the sum of being able to farm productively on these particular farms. So that would be our key emphasis. How best could we find a program or government with our involvement inputs in terms of getting a program that the interest on land is either very low so that it can become unaffordable. Number two is to find a new financial model for Agribank, because the current financial model Agribank is deploying, it's not working at all.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the interest rate Agribank is charging today to some of their products, and I'm not disputing they don't have lower interest rate, but particularly to the issue of land, I think it's fairly expensive, and they are close to the commercial banks. Now, as a developmental bank, that's besides the point of them having the particular mandate.
Okay. And you have in previous papers that the union has released called the Agribank's eviction of farms morally wrong. What brought you to that stance?
I think we need to make it very clear. The Agribank is an implementing agency of a government program. Now, within the governance structures of Agribank, they need to follow a strong financial prudence mechanism in terms of managing the funds of the shareholders, which is government. With that, we really agree. But the emphasis is the focus of Agribank, it's a developmental bank. That's one. Now, the evictions or the sale of farms through public auction, it's actually a reversal of the gains what the country have done in terms of making sure black people own this particular land. And this is really where our point is. This land basically goes back into the market. The first right of refusal has been given to government to buy. We know the financial situation of our government. Now, if government doesn't buy, it then becomes open for public. Now, if it becomes open for public, the potential buyers of this particular land, it's not the previously disadvantaged black Namibians. It's a different class of individuals or group of people that actually buy this particular property. Then we are reversing the little gains that the program have done. We're reversing that. And this land is actually going back in the hands of the haves already. And I think that's fundamentally the problem that we have. And the argument of Agribank, it's always around, it's a policy issue. But as a developmental bank, if you have a policy that you're implementing that's not delivering developmental output, sufficient enough developmental output, particularly on the issue of land, then we question their moral compass in terms of why they are there. And I think that's the reason why we really have a strong stance against land being auctioned on public auction that then goes back in the hands of the haves already. And we've got very good examples of those particular cases like that, where a farm of one of our members was actually bought by a neighbor of a previously advantaged individual who has 2 farms and is renting about 3 other farms in the area. And this person bought this farm for nothing. And I think that's the essence of our issue. This land is going back in the hands of other people, of people that are already in possession of land or that were previously advantaged in terms of that. So what are we doing as a government? Are we allowing the little that we have put together, the little achievement that the Ministry of Lands and Resettlement have achieved and what Agribank have achieved over the past 20 years? Are we reversing that process? Is this what we want? And I think that's the question that we are posing to government today. Okay.
And then we've come through various years where we have had droughts in the country, and obviously this has compounded, or this has made problems, this has made farming difficult within this landscape. How much of a challenge has that been on the ground level for your members? I mean, what are some of the challenges that this has brought to the fore now?
I think that the challenges, when you look at some of the farmers in our constituency, how they've been affected, the president for the past probably 4 consecutive years have been pronouncing drought as a drought emergency in the country. And this drought is coming now for the past 7 years. It's a prolonged drought. I mean, this is probably the worst drought that we have seen in our lifetimes. That impact, people are feeling it for the past 7 years. and the production levels have reduced. When you look at the livestock numbers in the countries, have reduced significantly in terms of that. And it have really put a lot of farmers into financial strains. There are farmers that were just literally walking into the banks and handing over the keys because they can't farm anymore. So that was really the impact of the drought. And it was year on year. The impact of drought for the past 7 years, it was taking place. So it's really a situation that have taken the farmers, and their hopes in terms of farming was completely taken away. But I mean, as farmers, we resistant, we fight forward, we look and hope for the best. Now that the rains are here, the country, when you look at the agricultural sector, in terms of the growth for the past couple of years was considerably very, very, very low in the agricultural sector. I mean, we're talking about below 10% in terms of growth, the sector itself. So what we're looking at now that we have received rain, we are in a position now that the recovery of particularly the livestock sector will take us about 5 years in terms of recovering to get to the correct production level because of the low number of animals that we have. Now we are hit with the issue of COVID. Now, which is an aspect that we are not really impacted. And I think the effect of COVID to agriculture is still to come. We are not yet there. But we're seeing that effect into some of our members that are having game farms. Those are a significant effect that the COVID had. But really, it's sort of a double sword. Now from the drought, we're busy to recover. Now we're in this particular position. So it's really a situation that have taken a lot of farmers backwards in terms of production, and it will take us another 3 years to recover from that.
And then there was drought relief rolled out by government. How effective was the trickle through to getting that much needed drought relief to the farmer who was suffering? I mean, was it effective?
No, I think I should applaud Agribank. They had a drought relief program. But I think they are best to answer that question.
No, the drought relief program rolled out by government.
Yes. No, by government, I think it was a step in the right direction. The bureaucratic process have really hampered a lot of farmers adopting or getting on board fairly quickly. So there were some casualties in the particular process, but we need to applaud our government. It's a big engine. It's very difficult to move a lot of resources at in a very quick time. We understand that. But I think, it was some form of an assistance that have really helped. But again, the bureaucratic processes that sits within government, it's actually great impediments in terms of helping the sector in itself. So I think there was a lot of delays and a lot of people went through the bus in terms of casualties. People have lost livestock. When you look at now claim processes of claiming back, it's another nightmare again. You need to wait for another 6 months for your cash flow. So, it's a relief, but it was also having a negative impact in terms of adopting that particular relief. But I think we can't blame our government. I think they tried the best that they could do given the times. But as I said, at times we need mechanisms that are more smoother, and we need our response should be much more quicker to issues. But there were some casualties, that went through the bus because of the adoption of the new drought relief program.
And then how would you rate the success of the stimulus package that was given out to the agriculture sector as part of the measures to fight COVID-19?
I think what Agribank did, there was a directive from government in terms of how they need to help the farmers. The directive is fairly clear. There is a 200 million that will be given to farmers, that will be given to Agribank to go and source money in the market to start assisting farmers in terms of that. But the way the program was designed by Agribank, I think to put it correctly, they have put conditions for people to access the facility. So when you look at what government have done in terms of the income grant, a classic example is people needed to apply for income grant and receive a 750, Now, they have put conditions for us to participate in a program. Now, for me to participate in that program, if I've got arrears, I need to pay X amount. Now, how is that of a relief? If I'm already in a dire situation, I'm coming 7 years down the drought, now you expect me to pay a sum of money to Agribank to participate and benefit out of the particular program. So I think for us it's not something that will really help the farmers. I think they have done the consultation with us, and we don't expect them to take all our recommendations. But I think the package that they put together is far-fetched from really helping the farmers. So I think we don't think that there will be sufficient results out of the package that they have designed, and it is not really there to benefit the farmers. When you look at the previous drought program, our question is, could Agribank come back to us and say, what is the amount of money they've spent on the previous drought program, and what are the benefits that people have derived from that? I mean, they can't talk about it. So there was no proper success out of the drought relief program Agribank had. Now they've got a COVID relief package, and they expect us to prove whether farmers have been affected by COVID. And as I said earlier on, COVID effect to farming will still come. It's not yet here. So how do I prove that I've been affected by COVID? I mean, there's nothing that I'm not affected by COVID. Most farmers are not really affected by COVID because the auctions are going on. People are still going ahead and selling their livestock and their fresh produce into the markets. So there's no real impact to farmers in terms of that. For the past 7 years, some of us have not retrenched employees. We still keep these people on our farms. So those are all the burdens that we have carried. But when you look at the package of Agribank, we don't foresee any results out of that. I mean, they have not shared the result of the previous drought relief program as to what the success was. Now, they came and sugarcoat the COVID, which is exactly the same drought relief, but they've just sugarcoating it. And for us, Agribank, at where we stand now, it's just a debt collection business.
And then agriculture is being seen as a catalyst towards food self-security. What role do you see yourself playing? Because Namibia is often said to be heavily dependent on South Africa and other countries for foodstuff. Where do you fit in, and how do you address the situation?
I think COVID is a good catalyst to achieve the objective of food self-security in a country, because a lot of people have started realizing the talks all over in town in different stakeholder sessions. It's all about agriculture is the way to go. But when you look at the budget that was given to Honorable Carlos Slytveen on this financial year in terms of agriculture, it's really peanuts. You know, we can't reform that sector if we're serious enough as a country and have that level of budget allocation that the government have given to agriculture. So in terms of food sufficiency, I mean, the country to get to a point where it becomes self-sufficient in terms of food, government needs to walk the talk. Government need to bring stakeholders to the table. Government need to say, if we need to take this sector on, because this is the one sector that will deal with issues around employment. I mean, when we get it correctly, I'm not an agricultural economist. I'm a pure farmer. But if we get the planning correctly, there's a big impact that the sector can make to the country. One, self-sufficiency. Two, job creation. As I said earlier to yourself, I mean, I've got 8 people on my farm that I employ full-time. You know, I've got 20 people that sits on a farm that do charcoal on a seasonal basis and wood. These are all people that we've kept them, besides the conditions of drought, besides all the other issues that have been there. So it is a potential of job creation at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of the low earnings to bring a lot of people into the economy. So I think our view is really, government needs to walk the talk. And if we want to reform the sector, I think we need to put sufficient resources behind the sector as government. We as farmers are ready to take hands with government in terms of that. And I think and we need to close the value chain. You know, we need to get to a point as a country where our hospitals, our prisons, our schools, and the farmers, because those are already offset agreements that can come in terms of food production that can come into the country. Our green schemes, I don't have a lot of knowledge about it, but we're not seeing the results. There's a lot of negativity around issues around AMTA and all this. But I think government must walk the talk and put sufficient resources behind that. And I think we've got the asset base. I mean, we've got land. You know, we've got the balance sheet. Why could we go out and source capital outside country to actually capitalize the sector significantly? I really think that's the route to go. We need to really get to a point and design a proper agricultural strategy with stakeholders to take the country to the next level, but we need to put sufficient capital behind the sector to bring it to where it's supposed to be.
Thank you for joining us on the Evening Review.
Thank you so much.
Now to take a look at the weather. Thank you for tuning in.